Emily Carter had just graduated law school. A small-town girl with big dreams, she couldn't believe she landed a position at one of New York City's most prestigious law firms. Her new boss, Victoria Hale, a woman people called a legend. A woman who commanded rooms with her presence. To Emily, she was everything Emily wanted to become. The sound of traffic echoed through the streets of Manhattan as Emily Carter pressed her back against the cool stone wall outside a towering glass building. She clutched her leather portfolio to her chest, trying to calm the nervous rhythm of her heartbeat. This was it. Her first day at the firm. The name Hale and Burke was etched in bold silver letters across the lobby entrance. To any young lawyer, it wasn't just a law firm. It was the dream. The kind of place that churned out courtroom legends and CEOs, personal attorneys. Landing a job here wasn't luck. It was survival of the fittest. And Emily had survived. Or so she thought. The elevator doors slid open to the 42nd floor, revealing a world that looked like it belonged on the cover of Forbes. Sleek glass walls, leather chairs, assistants rushing about with perfectly balanced coffee trays. The air itself seemed to buzz with power and prestige. Emily Carter? The voice was sharp, but not unkind. Emily turned, and there she was. If success had a face, it was hers. Impeccably tailored navy suit, heels that clicked like a metronome of authority, hair swept into a flawless bun. Her presence filled the room in a way that made even the boldest men straighten their ties. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had read about Victoria Hale in law journals. A woman who had clawed her way up in a man's world and emerged not only victorious, but untouchable. "Yes, ma'am," Emily managed, forcing a polite smile. Victoria's lips curved, but her eyes didn't soften. "You'll be shadowing me directly. I don't have time for hand-holding, but if you're sharp, you'll learn. If not," she paused, tilting her head. "Well, this firm doesn't waste space." Emily nodded quickly. "I won't let you down." Victoria's smile widened, just a little. "I like confidence. Let's see if you can back it up." The hours that followed were a blur of motion. Phone calls, case files, last-minute client meetings. Emily didn't even notice her lunch hour pass. She kept her notes organized, anticipating Victoria's needs, racing to keep pace with the whirlwind that was her boss. At the end of the day, when most associates had already fled the building, Victoria leaned against Emily's desk. "You're quick. Smarter than I expected." Emily's chest swelled with pride. She had always dreamed of being seen, being noticed for her talent, and now she was. "Thank you," she whispered. Victoria's gaze sharpened, appraising her the way a jeweler might study a diamond. "Stay close to me, Emily. Do as I say, and you'll go far." Those words burrowed deep into Emily's heart. In that moment, she didn't just feel like an employee. She felt chosen. That night, Emily called her mom back in Ohio. "Mom, you wouldn't believe it. Victoria Hale, yes, the Victoria Hale, she actually praised me today. She said I was quick. She said I'd go far." Her mom chuckled softly through the receiver. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. But remember, no job is worth losing yourself. Stay grounded, okay?" Emily laughed it off. "Of course, Mom. This is everything I've worked for. I can handle it." But as she lay awake in her tiny New York apartment, staring at the ceiling, Emily felt something stirring inside her. A hunger she hadn't known before. Victoria's approval wasn't just encouraging. It was intoxicating. The weeks that followed cemented the illusion. Victoria took Emily into high-profile meetings, dropped her name in front of senior partners, even introduced her to clients with a polished, "This is my associate, sharp, reliable." Every compliment was a golden thread weaving Emily into Victoria's world. And yet there was something strange. When Emily stayed past midnight finishing case notes, Victoria didn't thank her. She simply expected it. When Emily solved a tough problem, Victoria presented it as her own. But instead of feeling robbed, Emily felt grateful. After all, wasn't proximity to greatness a reward in itself? At least, that's what she told herself. One late evening, as the city lights flickered across the skyline, Emily found herself alone in the office. She glanced at the polished doors of Victoria's corner office, still glowing with lamplight. From inside came the muffled sound of laughter. Victoria on a late call, her voice honey-sweet as she charmed a client. But when the door cracked open, Emily caught a glimpse of something chilling. Victoria's smile vanished the instant the call ended. Her eyes hardened, her jaw tightened, and she muttered something under her breath. Words Emily couldn't catch, but the venom in them made her shiver. For just a second, the mask slipped, and Emily, though she didn't understand it yet, had just witnessed the first crack in the image of her corporate queen. From the very beginning, Victoria made Emily feel special. "You're different," she would say. She praised Emily's late nights, her perfect research, her drive. Emily believed she was seen. She believed she was chosen. But what she didn't know was that she was being groomed. The rhythm of New York was unforgiving, honking horns, flashing lights, and the constant rush of people chasing something just out of reach. But inside the sleek walls of Hale and Burke, Emily Carter felt like she had caught it. She had only been at the firm for a few weeks, yet she was no longer invisible. Victoria Hale had made sure of that. Every morning, Emily arrived before dawn, fueled by determination and coffee that barely disguised her exhaustion. Her colleagues noticed, whispering among themselves, "That's Victoria's new favorite." And it was true. When senior partners walked by, Victoria would gesture toward Emily with a polished smile. "This one's sharp. Watch her. She's going places." Emily's heart leapt every time. Praise from anyone else would have been nice, but praise from Victoria Hale? That was everything. It wasn't just recognition. It was validation, proof that the years of law school debt, the lonely nights in the library, the missed family holidays had all been worth it. For once, she wasn't just another junior associate drowning in paperwork. She was special. One Friday evening, long after most employees had fled to happy hour, Emily sat hunched over a pile of contracts. Her eyes blurred, but her pen didn't stop moving. The door to Victoria's office opened. "You're still here." Emily looked up, startled, then quickly straightened. "Just finishing these revisions you asked for." Victoria leaned against the doorway, studying her like a sculptor admiring her work. "Most associates would have shoved that on my desk Monday morning. You're different." Heat spread through Emily's chest. She didn't even feel tired anymore. Victoria crossed the room, her heels echoing softly. She placed a manicured hand on Emily's desk. "Do you know why I like you?" Emily shook her head, pulse racing. "Because you don't complain. You don't wait to be told twice. You understand what needs to be done and you do it." Emily smiled, her throat tight with pride. "I just want to make a difference here." Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened into what almost looked like warmth. "And you will, as long as you stay loyal." The following week, Victoria called Emily into her office. On the desk sat a thick file marked confidential. "I need you to prepare this case summary by tomorrow morning." Emily's eyes widened. "Tomorrow? That's..." Victoria's gaze sharpened. "Is that a problem?" Emily swallowed hard. "No, ma'am." "Good." Victoria's lips curved. "I knew I could count on you." Emily took the file, heart pounding. She worked until 3 a.m., bleary-eyed, fueled by vending machine coffee. By morning, she delivered the polished summary to Victoria's desk. Victoria skimmed through it, nodded once, and placed it aside. Acceptable. That was it. No thank you. No recognition. Just acceptable. Yet Emily smiled all the same. She noticed. She trusts me. That's enough. By now, Emily was known as Victoria's Shadow. At first, she took pride in it. But soon, she began noticing the way other associates looked at her, not with admiration, but with wariness. Some stopped inviting her to lunch. Conversations would hush when she walked into the break room. One afternoon, she overheard two colleagues whispering near the copier. "She's just her puppet. Give it 6 months. Victoria always burns them out." Emily froze, her stomach twisting. She wanted to defend herself, to shout that they were wrong. But the truth was, a small part of her wondered if they were right. That night, Emily stayed late again. As she gathered her notes, Victoria strolled by. "You're still here. Good girl." The words wrapped around Emily like a velvet ribbon. Good girl. Approval. Recognition. And just like that, the doubts melted away. Victoria's validation was like gasoline, setting fire to Emily's ambition, consuming her need for rest, for friends, for balance. The more Victoria demanded, the harder Emily worked. The harsher the tone, the more desperate Emily became to win back a sliver of praise. One evening, Victoria surprised her. "Join me for dinner. A client meeting, but I want you there." Emily's breath caught. Dinner with Victoria? A client meeting? This was the kind of opportunity most associates dreamed of. At the upscale restaurant, Victoria dazzled the clients with charm, wit, and razor-sharp intelligence. Emily mostly stayed quiet, but Victoria occasionally turned to her. "This one," she said, nodding toward Emily, "is my secret weapon." The clients chuckled, impressed. Emily felt her cheeks burn with pride. When the dinner ended, Victoria leaned in close as they walked to their cars. "Do you see now? Stick with me, and you'll be unstoppable." Emily nodded eagerly. "Yes, ma'am." That night, Emily collapsed into bed, too exhausted to even change her clothes. She should have felt drained, but all she could think about was Victoria's words echoing in her head. "You'll be unstoppable." It didn't matter that she hadn't eaten all day. It didn't matter that she hadn't spoken to her mom in a week. It didn't matter that her friends had stopped texting. Victoria believed in her. And that was enough. For now. But what happens when the very person who lifts you up begins to tear you down? Emily was about to learn that a narcissist's praise is never free, and the cost would be heavier than she ever imagined. The first betrayal came quietly. In a client meeting, Victoria presented Emily's work as her own. Emily sat frozen, her heart pounding. "Maybe it doesn't matter," she told herself. "Maybe this is just how the game works." But deep down, something inside her cracked. The city buzzed with spring energy. People spilled out of coffee shops with iced lattes, taxis honked impatiently, and Central Park bloomed with color. But for Emily, the world outside barely existed anymore. Her world was Hale and Burke. Her desk had become a second home. Her inbox was a battlefield she fought to keep under control. And every time she glanced toward Victoria's glass-walled office, her chest tightened with both fear and longing. Approval. That's what she was chasing. And she thought she had it, until the day it vanished in the cruelest way. It was a Tuesday morning, and Emily had been working for 2 weeks straight on a high-stakes corporate case. Thousands of pages of contracts, endless revisions, sleepless nights. She had poured her heart into preparing a flawless brief. This was her chance to shine. She stood outside the mahogany conference room door, file in hand, rehearsing her points. Inside were senior partners, the firm's most important clients, and, of course, Victoria Hale. When she finally entered, the room was electric with tension. The client, a tech CEO worth millions, sat at the head of the table, tapping his pen impatiently. Victoria's voice cut through the room like a knife. "Thank you all for being here. I want to present our strategy moving forward." Emily smiled nervously, waiting for her cue. She had spent nights crafting this. Surely Victoria would give her the floor. But then, something unexpected happened. Victoria began presenting. Line by line, argument by argument, word for word. Emily's arguments, Emily's structure, Emily's voice. Except it wasn't her voice anymore. It was Victoria's. Emily's stomach dropped. She sat frozen, hands trembling as she listened to her own work being paraded as someone else's genius. The CEO nodded, impressed. "Brilliant, Victoria. That's exactly the direction we should go." Victoria flashed her trademark smile. "I'm glad you agree. My team and I worked tirelessly on this." Her eyes flicked toward Emily for just a second, a glance sharp enough to say, "Don't you dare speak." And Emily didn't. She sat there in silence, cheeks burning, pride crumbling into dust. When the meeting ended, applause echoed around the room. Partners congratulated Victoria, The CEO shook her hand, and Emily followed quietly behind, invisible. In the hallway, James, the senior associate who'd been kind to her before, caught her eye. His expression was knowing, almost pitying. "You did good work," he whispered. Emily blinked. "How did you?" He shrugged. "Everyone knows who stays here past midnight." Before she could respond, Victoria appeared, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. "Emily." Emily straightened. "Yes, ma'am." Victoria tilted her head, her voice cool. "You seemed quiet in there." Emily swallowed hard. I thought I might have a chance to present." Victoria's eyes hardened. "Do you want credit, or do you want to win? Because around here, winners don't whine about recognition. They get results." Emily's chest tightened. "I wasn't whining, I just..." "Enough." Victoria's tone was final. "Learn to think like a partner, not a child craving gold stars." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Emily standing alone in the echoing hallway, humiliation washing over her. That night, Emily sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the blank wall. Her dinner, cold takeout noodles, sat untouched on the table. Was Victoria right? Was she being childish for wanting her name mentioned? Wasn't the real victory that the case went well? That the client was impressed? But deep down, another voice whispered, "It was your work. You deserve to be seen." She pushed the thought away. She couldn't afford to think like that. Not here. Not if she wanted to survive. The next morning, Victoria breezed into the office as if nothing had happened. She dropped a stack of papers on Emily's desk. "You'll need to rework these contracts. The summary yesterday? Adequate, but sloppy in places. Don't let that happen again." Emily's jaw tightened. "Sloppy?" Victoria arched a brow. "Do you want to argue, or do you want to improve?" The words hit like a whip. Emily's stomach churned. She had worked tirelessly, perfectly, yet now she doubted herself. Maybe she had missed something. Maybe she was sloppy. Maybe she wasn't as good as she thought. Victoria smirked slightly, as if sensing the storm inside her. "Don't take it personally, Emily. This is how greatness is made. Pressure creates diamonds." "You want to be a diamond, don't you?" Emily nodded weakly. "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Days passed, and the distance between Emily and her colleagues grew wider. At first, she had been proud of being Victoria's chosen one. Now, it felt like a scarlet letter. No one invited her to lunch anymore. Conversations ended when she walked into a room. And worst of all, she couldn't confide in anyone. Because how do you tell the truth about a woman everyone else admires? Victoria wasn't just respected. She was idolized. A self-made queen in a ruthless city. To accuse her of stealing, of gaslighting, of cruelty, it would sound like jealousy. So Emily stayed silent. And in that silence, Victoria's power grew. One evening, as Emily packed up her files, she caught her reflection in the office window. Dark circles under her eyes, hair tied back hastily, shoulders slumped. She barely recognized herself. The young woman who had walked into Hale and Burke with wide eyes and hope burning bright was fading. And she didn't even realize yet that this was only the beginning. The city never really slept, but at 3 a.m, Manhattan felt quieter, a lull between one storm and the next. Inside the glass towers of Hale and Burke, the lights still burned. And at a corner desk, Emily Carter's eyes stung as she stared at her computer screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, too tired to type another word. She had been here since sunrise, and the sunrise before that. But what gnawed at her wasn't the exhaustion. It was the doubt. Had she made the mistake? Or had Victoria twisted the truth again? It started small. One Monday morning, Victoria stormed into Emily's cubicle, waving a folder. Why wasn't this filed on Friday? Emily blinked, confused. "I filed it. I even sent you the confirmation email." Victoria's eyes narrowed, voice sharp. "I don't see it. If I don't see it, it didn't happen." Emily scrambled through her inbox, heart pounding. And there it was, the email, time-stamped, sent directly to Victoria. She pulled it up, relief flooding her. "Here, look. I sent it at 5:12 p.m. Victoria leaned over, skimmed the screen, then let out a cold laugh. "You call this filing?" Half the attachments are missing. This is sloppy, Emily. You're sloppy. Emily's stomach dropped. She opened the attachments, and they were all there. Every last one. Still, Victoria's voice cut deep. Fix it. And next time, don't argue. Own your mistakes. And with that, she walked away. Emily sat frozen, staring at the screen. The files were fine. The email was fine. But why, then, did she feel like she'd done something wrong? 2 days later, another incident. Victoria summoned her into her office, slamming a file onto the desk. These notes are incomplete. Where's the analysis I asked for? Emily's chest tightened. I included it. Section 4. Victoria's eyes blazed. Don't gaslight me, Emily. Don't insult my intelligence. Emily's throat went dry. Gaslight? She was the one being accused of gaslighting? She flipped through the file desperately. And there it was, the analysis, neatly typed, just as she remembered. But when she looked up, Victoria's gaze was piercing, daring her to challenge the narrative. Do you really want to stand here and tell me I'm wrong? Emily's shoulders slumped. No, ma'am. Good. Victoria's smile was thin, victorious. Now fix it properly. Emily left the office trembling. She knew she wasn't crazy. She knew her work had been fine. Yet doubt crept in, spreading like poison. By now, Emily's coworkers barely spoke to her. A few gave sympathetic looks, but most avoided her altogether. Victoria had a way of spinning stories that made Emily seem unreliable, even careless. Emily missed another deadline. Emily overlooked key details. Emily's still learning. The whispers echoed down the hallways, chipping away at the respect she had once felt. Even James, the kind associate who had warned her before, kept his distance. He caught her eye once, shaking his head slightly, a silent "be careful." But be careful of what? Victoria's wrath? Or the truth Emily no longer trusted herself to see? One night, after another brutal day, Emily finally called her mom. Her voice cracked. Mom, am I losing it? I keep messing up. Sweetheart, her mom interrupted gently. You've never been careless. You're one of the most meticulous people I know. Emily's chest ached. But she keeps saying I'm sloppy, that I'm missing things. And sometimes I believe her. There was silence on the other end, then a quiet sigh. Emily, listen to me. People who tear others down aren't always telling the truth. Sometimes they need you to doubt yourself so they can stay in control. Emily bit her lip. She wanted to believe her mom. But Victoria's voice was louder, sharper, always in her ear. Friday evening. The office was nearly empty when Victoria swept in, her heels echoing across the marble floor. She dropped a thick binder on Emily's desk. I needed this brief yesterday. Why do I always have to repeat myself? Emily's stomach lurched. She remembered the conversation. Clear as day. Victoria had said Monday, not Thursday. Monday. Her pulse quickened. This time, she couldn't stay silent. With respect, ma'am, you said Monday, not yesterday. The air froze. Victoria leaned in close, her perfume sharp, her voice low and cutting. Are you calling me a liar? Emily's breath caught. No, Then watch your tone. Victoria straightened, her expression cold and triumphant. Do it again. Correctly. And next time, remember what I said. She turned and walked away. Emily sat motionless, the binder heavy in her lap. Her hands trembled. Her throat burned with unshed tears. She knew what had been said. She knew she was right. But the power of Victoria's conviction made her feel like a child caught in a lie. And in that moment, Emily understood the truth she hadn't wanted to face. It wasn't just about work anymore. Victoria wasn't training her. She was breaking her. Emily stared at the city lights outside the window, her reflection pale and tired in the glass. The dream job she had once clung to was slipping through her fingers, and she didn't know how to stop it. But one thing was certain. The woman she had once admired was no mentor. She was something far darker. The longer Emily stayed at the firm, the more she noticed how the atmosphere seemed poisoned. At first, she thought it was just the pressure of corporate law, the long hours, the impossible deadlines. But soon, she realized it wasn't the work. It was the people, or rather, one person at the center of it all, Victoria Hale. Victoria had a way of pulling strings without ever looking like she was the one tugging them. She whispered just enough into one associate's ear, dropped just enough praise on another to make them suspicious of each other. To the outside world, she was a charismatic leader, admired and respected. But within the walls of that glass tower, she was orchestrating quiet wars. And Emily? She was in the crossfire. One Monday morning, Emily walked into the office with a coffee in hand, ready for the week ahead. As she greeted a fellow associate, Sarah, the woman barely nodded before turning away. It stung, but Emily brushed it off. Maybe Sarah was having a bad morning. But as days went by, the pattern repeated. Conversations would stop when Emily entered a room. Lunch invitations, once extended, quietly disappeared. Even James, her only ally, seemed busier than ever, harder to reach. It was as if an invisible wall had gone up around her, and she couldn't figure out how or why it was built. The truth revealed itself in fragments. During a late evening, Emily overheard Victoria in the hallway, her voice low but sharp. "Emily's brilliant, yes, but she's inexperienced. I wouldn't rely on her judgment yet." Another day, Victoria leaned over a colleague's desk, smiling sweetly. "I know Emily mentioned she was working on that brief, but I had to step in and correct it. Don't mention it to her, though. I wouldn't want to embarrass her." Each statement was carefully crafted, never outright cruel, but enough to sow seeds of doubt in Emily's capabilities. Enough to make others see her as unreliable, someone to be cautious around. And Emily felt it. Every cold glance, every hesitant smile, every whispered conversation that stopped when she passed. Nights at the office grew lonelier. Emily stayed late, sometimes past midnight, trying to outwork the shadow Victoria had cast over her. She believed if she just worked harder, delivered more, she could prove herself, not just to Victoria, but to everyone. But the harder she tried, the more it seemed she was slipping. No one wanted to collaborate with her. Team projects turned into solitary marathons. And when recognition came, it was always Victoria standing in the spotlight, basking in praise for work Emily had poured her heart into. The loneliness began to seep into Emily's personal life too. Calls from friends went unanswered. Weekends blurred into workdays. Even her mom noticed the exhaustion in her voice. "Sweetheart," her mom said one night, "you sound so tired. When's the last time you did something just for you?" Emily had no answer. The cruelest part was how Victoria twisted the knife. When Emily finally gathered the courage to mention the distance she felt from colleagues, Victoria tilted her head, feigning concern. "Oh, Emily, that's strange. You know, sometimes people just feel intimidated by excellence. Maybe they see you as competition. Try not to take it personally." It sounded like comfort, but it was poison. The implication was clear. Emily was the problem. Her success, what little of it she felt she had, was driving others away. And if she was isolated, it was because of who she was, not what Victoria had done. The more Victoria spoke, the more Emily doubted herself. Was she imagining the hostility? Was she overreacting? Or worse, was she truly the reason no one wanted to be near her? One evening, Emily sat at her desk, the city lights sprawling out beneath her. Papers cluttered her workspace, her laptop hummed, but her mind was elsewhere. She felt like she was screaming into a void. No one heard her. No one saw her. She was invisible, and yet, paradoxically, always under Victoria's watchful eye. The firm that had once felt like her dream now felt like a gilded cage. She was trapped, surrounded by people, but utterly alone. Her chest tightened, and for the first time, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake coming here. Emily had almost forgotten what it felt like to have someone in her corner. Weeks of silent hallways and guarded glances had chipped away at her confidence until she felt like a ghost drifting through the firm. She worked, she delivered, but she wasn't living, just surviving. And then, late one night, James appeared. It was close to 11 p.m. The office was nearly empty, save for Emily, still hunched over a stack of contracts. Her eyes burned from exhaustion. Her coffee had long gone cold. She heard footsteps approach and looked up to see James standing at her doorway, his tie loosened, his briefcase dangling from one hand. "You're still here?" he asked softly. Emily managed a tired smile. "Aren't you?" James chuckled, stepping inside. "Touché. But at least I have an excuse. I've been here for 20 years. You, on the other hand, should still be young enough to have a life outside these walls." Emily looked down, embarrassed. "I don't really have much of a choice. I need to prove myself." James studied her for a long moment. His eyes weren't just tired, they were knowing. "Prove yourself. To who?" "Victoria." The name lingered in the air like static. Emily's heart picked up. No one ever said Victoria's name in that tone, like a warning instead of admiration. James lowered his voice. "I've seen what she does. You're not the first, Emily. And if you stay long enough, you won't be the last." Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" James leaned against the doorframe, as if weighing how much truth to share. "Finally," he sighed. "She builds you up, makes you feel like you're special. Then, when you've given her everything, your time, your energy, your ideas, she tears you down. Breaks you so completely that you'll question your own worth. It's how she keeps control." Emily's breath caught. It was as if he had read the pages of her diary. "But why?" she whispered. "Because people like Victoria can't share the spotlight," James said quietly. "They thrive on power, and power comes from keeping others small." Emily shook her head, struggling to take it in. "I thought it was just me. That maybe I wasn't good enough." James's eyes softened. "That's what she wants you to believe. She did the same to me when I first joined. I watched good, talented people leave this place broken. Some never recovered their confidence. That's her game. She isolates you so you won't have anyone left to remind you of your worth." The words hit Emily like a weight lifted and a burden added all at once. On one hand, she wasn't crazy, it wasn't just in her head. On the other, it confirmed her worst fear. Victoria's cruelty was deliberate. James stepped closer, lowering his voice even further. "Listen, Emily. You have talent. Real talent. Don't let her destroy that. Protect yourself, your mind, your spirit. Because once you start doubting who you are, it's hard to find your way back." Emily swallowed hard. "So what do I do?" For a moment, James looked almost sad, as if he wished he had a better answer. "That's up to you. Some people fight her. Most walk away before it's too late. Just don't lose yourself trying to please someone who'll never be satisfied." That night, long after James had gone, Emily sat staring at her reflection in the darkened office window. For the first time in months, she felt something shift inside her, not yet strength, not yet courage, but awareness. She wasn't imagining things. She wasn't weak or unworthy. She was caught in the orbit of a woman who thrived on control. And if James was right, the only way to survive was to step carefully, or eventually break free. But how? Emily didn't know yet. All she knew was that the seed of doubt about Victoria, the truth, had been planted. And once you see the cracks in someone's mask, you can never unsee them. The weeks after James's warning felt heavier. Emily carried his words with her like a hidden truth, one she couldn't ignore, but didn't yet know how to act on. Every smile from Victoria felt sharper, every compliment poisoned with a hidden sting. Emily's isolation grew worse, and the silence from her colleagues was deafening. But nothing could have prepared her for the night it all came crashing down. The breaking point came in the boardroom. In front of partners and clients, Victoria tore Emily apart. Her words were sharp, cruel, designed to humiliate. Emily's hands shook. Her cheeks burned with shame. That night, she collapsed in her apartment, whispering into the phone to her mother. "Maybe I'm not good enough." And her mother said the words Emily had forgotten. "You are more than someone else's stepping stone." It was a Thursday evening when Emily got the email. Mandatory, partners strategy meeting, 7 p.m., boardroom. Her stomach dropped. These meetings were rare, reserved for major cases and high-level strategy. Associates like her were seldom invited. But this one had her name on it, specifically requested by Victoria Hale. For a fleeting moment, hope sparked. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe Victoria had finally seen her worth and was giving her the platform she deserved. She stayed late, polishing her presentation notes until her fingers cramped. Her research on the client's upcoming litigation was airtight, dozens of hours poured into it, every angle considered. She wanted to walk into that boardroom ready to shine. The boardroom buzzed with energy. Senior partners in tailored suits leaned back in leather chairs, sipping sparkling water as the city's skyline glittered beyond the glass walls. Victoria swept in last, flawless in a navy dress, her presence commanding the room. She placed a manicured hand on Emily's shoulder. "Everyone, this is Emily Carter. She's been working closely on our strategy." Emily's heart raced. "This is it. This is my chance." Victoria gestured toward the head of the table. "Emily, why don't you walk us through your findings?" Emily nodded, her palms damp, and began. She laid out the case structure, the risks, the potential defenses. Her voice wavered at first, but soon she found her rhythm. The partners leaned in, nodding, jotting notes. For a moment, Emily felt it, the old confidence, the fire that had brought her here. And then it happened. Midway through her explanation, Victoria raised a hand, stopping her cold. "Actually," Victoria said smoothly, her voice slicing through the room, "I need to clarify something. While Emily's effort here is admirable, much of what she's presenting is incomplete." The room shifted. Partners exchanged looks. Emily froze. "Incomplete?" Victoria walked to the front, heels clicking like a drumbeat of authority. "For example, the statute of limitations she cited is correct in theory, but it doesn't account for the recent precedent set by the Carson versus Wilkins case." She turned to the partners. "Fortunately, I caught it and adjusted our strategy accordingly." Gasps and murmurs rippled. Emily's throat closed. She had considered Carson versus Wilkins. She had written a full page on it. But somehow, it wasn't in her slides. Her mind spun. Had she left it out? Had she overlooked it? Or had Victoria removed it when she reviewed the deck earlier? Victoria smiled, gracious but cold. "Don't get me wrong, Emily is bright. Very bright. But she's still learning. That's why I keep a close eye on all associate work. We can't risk mistakes at this level." And just like that, Emily's weeks of work were reduced to dust. In front of every partner, Emily stood frozen, heat flooding her cheeks. The partners shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided her eyes, others gave small, pitying looks. One leaned toward another and whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. "Promising, but green. Not ready." The words sliced deeper than a knife. Her vision blurred. Her chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but her voice was gone, swallowed by humiliation. Victoria carried on, commanding the room with Emily's research, reshaped as her own brilliance. By the time the meeting ended, the partners were applauding Victoria's keen insight. Emily slipped out unnoticed, invisible. Emily barely made it to the ladies' room before her knees buckled. She gripped the edge of the sink, gasping for air as her reflection blurred. Her heart pounded, hands shaking uncontrollably. Tears burned her eyes. She felt small, broken like James had warned her. And in that moment of raw despair, she pulled out her phone and dialed the only number that felt safe. "Mom?" Her voice cracked when her mother answered. "Emily? Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Emily sobbed, words tumbling out. She humiliated me, Mom. In front of everyone. I don't even know who I am anymore. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I'm not good enough." Her mother's voice was firm but gentle. "Listen to me. You are enough. You've always been enough. No job, no woman, no boss gets to decide your worth. Don't let her make you forget who you are." Emily pressed her forehead to the cool mirror, her mother's words a lifeline pulling her back from the edge. But deep down, Emily knew she couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. And soon, she would find the courage to do what few ever dared, stand up to the queen of the firm. The morning after the humiliating boardroom disaster, Emily walked into the office with swollen eyes and a hollow ache in her chest. Every step felt heavier than the last, but beneath the weight of shame, something else stirred, a quiet, simmering resolve. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "You've always been enough. Don't let her make you forget who you are." For the first time, Emily realized she had a choice. She could either let Victoria break her, like she had broken so many others, or she could fight back, not with shouting matches or accusations, but with something stronger, the truth. That day, Emily started small. She opened a private folder on her laptop, encrypted and password protected, and labeled it simply, Notes. Every time Victoria twisted her words, took credit for her work, or shifted blame, Emily wrote it down. Dates, times, witnesses. When Victoria praised her in private but criticized her in public, Emily recorded the contradiction. When she noticed colleagues avoiding her after quiet chats with Victoria, she jotted the details. It wasn't much at first, just fragments. But slowly, a picture formed, one that revealed a calculated pattern of manipulation. One evening, Emily caught James in the elevator, his jacket slung over his shoulder. "James," she whispered, glancing around nervously, "can I ask you something?" His brows furrowed. "Of course. Did she ever do this to you? Publicly humiliate you like that?" James's eyes darkened. "Worse. She almost cost me a promotion." "She thrives on it, Emily. If you're humiliated, you're easier to control." Emily swallowed. "I'm keeping notes. Documentation. Do you think it matters?" A faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "It's the only thing that does. She wins because no one keeps receipts. Be smarter than the rest of us." And soon, she would launch her most vicious attack yet, forcing Emily to make the hardest decision of her career. The storm broke on a Wednesday morning. Emily had just settled at her desk when an urgent message from Victoria's assistant popped up on her screen. Her stomach tightened. Meetings called this abruptly were never good. She gathered her notebook, her pulse quickening, and walked down the glossy hallway toward the room where her confidence had once been shredded. The boardroom was already filled with partners when she arrived. Victoria sat at the head of the table, radiant and composed, as if she were hosting a gala instead of a meeting. Emily slid into a chair. She hadn't even opened her notebook before Victoria began. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victoria said smoothly, "I've called you here to address a concern. One of our associates has been showing troubling behavior." Her eyes landed on Emily like a predator's. Emily's chest tightened. Here it comes. She's been taking liberties with client information, misrepresenting her involvement in projects, and creating confusion among staff. This kind of recklessness is dangerous for a firm of our stature. Murmurs rose around the table. Emily's heart pounded. She knew what this was, one last attempt to break her, to push her completely into silence. For a moment, she froze, the old instinct to shrink, to apologize, clawing at her. But then James's words echoed in her memory. "Protect yourself, your mind, your spirit. Once you start doubting who you are, it's hard to find your way back." And her mother's voice. "You've always been enough." Emily took a deep breath. Her hands trembled, but she spoke. "With all due respect, Victoria, that's not true." The room stilled. Emily opened her folder and slid a stack of papers across the table. "Every email, every brief, every note I submitted, time-stamped and verified. If there's confusion, it didn't come from me." She looked directly at Victoria. "I will not let my name be dragged through the mud because someone else needs to feel powerful." Gasps filled the room. Partners shifted uncomfortably, some leaning closer, curiosity sparking in their eyes. Victoria's smile faltered, just slightly. Emily could have kept going. She could have exposed everything, the lies, the credit theft, the manipulations. But as she stood there, heart racing, she realized something deeper. She didn't need to destroy Victoria to win. She just needed to walk away. "Effective immediately," Emily said, her voice steady now. "I resign." The silence was deafening. Victoria blinked, caught off guard, the first crack of true surprise flickering across her face. Emily gathered her things, slid her folder of evidence into her bag, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she paused and turned back, her voice calm but firm. "You can take my job, Victoria, but you'll never take my worth." Then she walked out. The moment Emily stepped onto the street, a weight lifted. The crisp New York air filled her lungs like freedom. For the first time in months, she could breathe without fear. Her phone buzzed. James. She answered. I heard, he said simply. You did the right thing. Emily smiled through the sting of tears. It doesn't feel like winning. That's because it's not about winning, James replied. It's about surviving. And you, Emily, you'll thrive. 2 weeks later, Emily sat in the office of a small but growing firm downtown. The atmosphere was different, warm, collaborative, human. Her work was valued, her ideas respected. For the first time since leaving law school, she felt like herself again. Not someone else's shadow. Not someone else's pawn. Herself. And though Victoria Hale still ruled her glass tower uptown, Emily no longer carried the scars of her approval. She had chosen peace over prestige. And that choice had saved her. Emily's story is not just about one woman, one boss, or one law firm. It's about the quiet wars fought every day in offices across America. Wars you don't see splashed across headlines, but wars that leave scars all the same. The war of trying to please someone who will never be pleased. The war of doubting your own worth because a narcissist makes you question reality. The war of isolation, where silence becomes your only companion. For Emily, the breaking point came in a boardroom. For someone else, it might come in a cubicle, or at a retail counter, or in a classroom. Narcissistic personalities don't wear warning labels. They often wear charm, confidence, and success. And that's what makes their damage so devastating. But here's the truth. You are not what a narcissist says you are. You are not your boss's approval. You are not the lies whispered about you. You are not the mistakes they pin on your shoulders. You are enough. You've always been enough. Emily walked away, not because she wasn't strong enough to stay, but because she was strong enough to leave. She chose peace over prestige, freedom over fear. And in doing so, she found herself again. Maybe as you listen to this story, you feel a pang of recognition. Maybe you've worked under someone like Victoria Hale. Maybe you're still working under them now. If you're among these types of people, or if you know someone who is suffering with it, please tell us in the comments. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And sometimes, sharing is the first step to healing. This was Touching Soul Stories. If Emily's journey touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own strength, please subscribe to our channel. Every week, we share stories that dig deep, stories that remind us we're not alone in our struggles. Remember, your worth is not defined by those who try to break you. It's defined by the courage you carry inside. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away.